Well, these are glass pieces I made in Murano near Venice, and it's all hand blown into molds with amber colored glass. So what you see here is actually the color of the glass, and what we did is we put silver layer on the inside, like they used to do with the old mirror making, and that's why it reflects the amber color, so you get the golden appearance of the pieces. No, it's not mass produced because it's very labor intensive to make. So it's a lot of material and it's all handmade. So these pieces are in an edition of 6 pieces, and it's sold to the gallery and in the gallery circuit. Nowadays, that's really a question that people tend to ask and think it's very important. But for me, it's not so important to see myself as a designer or artist, because I think I just make the pieces I like. And whether that's art or design, I don't really care. So it's like, you're going to a restaurant and you're not gonna ask to the cook who's making also bread, like, are you a baker or a cook? What are you? No, it's like you do both, and it's both supposed to be nice and good to do. What it is, these pieces keep you a bit of sharp. You can go more into depth. It's more. You can go more outspoken and more experimental, and in that way, it's a nice. Contribution to the more maybe sort of commercial way, or the work for labels and furniture producers. So this is really a way to be, to stand out a little bit more and to freak out also. Most of the times we don't really get a design briefing as we most of the time we got asked by a company, and you immediately feel what's the click between each other. So in that sense, you don't need a lot of words, you don't need a lot of thinking, you just feel what it's all about. And then you start thinking what you can do, for example in this case with the material, what you think is interesting in the material. And in most cases I go back in the history of a material or company to just come from me to a sort of conclusion of what it's all about. And in this case, it was like all these exclusive glass pieces have always been a sort of centerpieces in your house. Either it's on the table or somewhere in a corner or somewhere in a hallway. There was a beautiful glass piece, which wasn't really used all the time. So I wanted to create more also centerpieces that really stood out. We had a sort of suggestion of a function, but apart from that, it was just about being beautiful there, and more about the knowledge that the piece is made of glass. There's a lot of handwork in it, and no piece is the same also. So you have this sort of feeling as a consumer. If you put it in your house, it should make your environment a bit more pleasing. It's not about that you can put a lot of flowers in a vase. It's more that the object itself should already tell a story. This was the first project I did in glass. Some little parts of design have been in glass, but not glass like this, not hand blown. It was the Pyrex glass. And this was really the first big project in glass. But I work in stainless steel, in wood, in ceramics, and all kinds of materials. Well, the fact that it's glass is you are sort of limited in a way. You are limited in size and the weight and what you can do, the sharpness of edges and so on. You have to be aware of the limitations of what's possible. And so you're gonna, first off, you start quite extreme, and then you have to make some compromises here and there to get it to make it work. But apart from that, I think if you push the men that make it, and if you get into a nice relationship with them, you can really push them to go a bit more extreme and to go a bit bigger and to things like that. Well, I don't have so much. I'm not the kind of designer that tries to teach people something, or I'm not a teacher in that sense. So for me, it's the most important thing that people enjoy what I make and see the beauty of it and maybe get attached to it. But also maybe what I do think is important, that people and designers start making more personal and outspoken things that will last. So I think it's totally, you cannot come with a throwaway product anymore. It's in these days of the environment and what it all causes, you have to be very careful on what you make. So I'm striving for good quality and some emotional attachment to the product. art piece?
I consider myself as a creator, not really as an artist or a designer. I think that's not really important. I'm just creating things, and sometimes it's autonomous objects like the ones you see here, and at other times I work in a very industrial way. So I do both things. Well, when you design for the industrial market, then you have to consider other things. Then, for example, a sofa that we're just launching now, this design week for Bernett Design, has to be very functional, of course, and it has to get a good price to produce, so it gets a good sales price. But I don't really consider that when I start designing. I just start very freely, and the free pieces, they can be also very free in terms of technique, production methods, and in the end also the price. So I think it goes very natural, because in the one thing you keep very free, and the other part, the industrial part, you start free and you make it more narrow and focused in the end. My starting point in design is actually always the concept first, and from there I decide which kind of material it's going to be, which technique I want to use, the size. So it really starts with the idea. I work with many different materials. I don't really have a preference, but in general I like pure materials. So like glass is a very pure material and a very specific and special technique, but I do a lot in ceramics and textiles and wood too, for example. Well, definitely with glass, my designs are influenced by the production process and the materials, because not everything is possible in glass and it's very fragile, but it also has very nice ways to shape, so you can get very specific shapes. And also what's interesting about glass is that, for example, when you blow it more thick, the color becomes different than when it's thinner at certain points, so it really gets alive, and this is something very nice about this production method. Those pieces are out of a series of 7. This one's called Drink. It's really about the most basic things in life that we tend to forget often, which is something like drinking. You feel that when you're busy in the day, at the end of the day you think, I even forgot to drink. And so this is a kind of homage to the queens of the vessels, the amphora. This one's called Dream. That one's called Fun. And that one's called Rest, because it's in a kind of ultimate rest position, because the hourglass is always in the same position, laying down on the pillows out of glass. So it's a kind of ultimate rest situation. Yeah, what I hope, you never know of course, but what I hope in general with my designs is that it plays on the emotion of people, and people get surprised and get to think a little bit longer about the products and the idea behind.